mentioned you did an interview with Cheech, right?
No, he's coming in February.
Oh, okay.
Oh no, but it was his museum.
Yeah, so
That's
you're doing an interview for his
the
the Cheech.
Cheech Museum, and I'll mention that because when I heard that he accepted the offer, and I guess they gave him a lot of stuff
Right.
to put his museum there,
Mm.
and when I heard about it, I said, I'm not ever going to Orange County or wherever the
It's in
hell it is.
Riverside.
Riverside, it's like at the end of the world.
Right, it is. Yeah. What
Uh,
do you know why he like made it that far?
oh, they gave him a, a lot of land and a lot of,
Oh,
I
okay.
think, some money,
Mm-hmm.
and also a beautiful building and all of this stuff.
That
And
makes
I
sense.
guess he just took it, to house his collection.
Yeah.
And I hear that I'm prominently displayed, but I've never been there.
You should. I want to go there.
Yeah, so there you have. You haven't gone either, so
No, it is really far.
yeah. And I guess there's a very famous hotel there. What's the Mission Inn or something?
I don't know.
And it's where you can stay, because to drive there, look at the artwork, and then come home is just too much.
Yeah,
So
yeah, that's
you have
true.
to stay
You,
overnight.
you have to have a whole event
Yeah,
and a
yeah.
weekend there.
Yeah, weekend there.
Okay, so thank you for being here, Frank. Can you introduce yourself, your full name?
I'm Frank Edward Joseph. Baptism, First Communion, confirmation, soldier in Christ, and all of that. Yeah, I was raised Catholic,
Uh-huh.
and I went to a very interesting little teeny church in East LA, Boyle Heights. Actually, I grew up in Boyle Heights,
Yeah.
and it's Topla Church, and it was so interesting because it was encrusted with paintings and painted statues and all the stuff that, like, the present Catholic Church is sort of against all that stuff. Now they have bare walls and bare minimum.
Right.
They've become kind of, like modern day Jews, because Jews have no ornamentation at all.
Right. Yeah, yeah.
There's an injunction against graven images,
Uh-huh.
but I was influenced by all those paintings when I was very young.
Right. So, so you were raised in Boyle Heights.
That's right.
What was that like, first of all?
Well, it's so funny because I am 82 years old. I have to mention that because I'm that's when the war started in against Japan in the South Pacific, and then we declared war with Germany, and all of that. The year I was born. And so when growing up in the 40s and 50s, there was all this talk about, reminiscent of the Second World War. And, it colored my life in a certain way. Many of my relatives were drafted and served in the Pacific. A very famous cousin. I'm one of 163 primos.
Are you serious?
14 aunts and uncles.
That's crazy.
And he ended up a paraplegic, but he was incredibly upper bodies had upper body strength, and he's a very handsome a man, and so he played opposite Marlon Brando in a movie called The Men, which was about amputees, paraplegics in the military.
Right.
That's just my background.
What do you say about we're in Boyle Heights right now.
Yeah, I'm back home.
You've seen all the changes and stuff that's happened here. Like,
Gentrification.
Do you have a take on it?
Well, I don't quite know. Yes, when I was young, it was quite different here. Uh, it was populated by Mexican Americans, Chicanos,
Mm-hmm.
Japanese Americans, and Jewish Americans. And it was a totally different kind of, atmosphere and feeling. Uh, Everyone now talks about the fact that Boyle Heights has become a, a frightening or a dangerous place to live. But like when I grew up, it was statistically at least the safest part of the city of Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm.
I think it still is.
Yeah.
But um, it colored my life. Yes, I've been married to at least two Jewish women,
Okay.
and
And your current wife, is she Jewish?
yes, she is. I grew up on the other side of town because I think all the Jews decided had a meeting at the Breeze Street Shul and all decided to move to the Fairfax area. And so, now the Jewish population lives on the west side.
Right.
Uh,
Are you familiar with Highland Park at all?
yes, I had a studio there. Uh,
Is it true that a lot of Highland Park used to be predominantly Jewish people that lived
I,
there?
you know, I wasn't aware of it when I was young, but
Okay.
maybe that's true.
Yeah, that's what I
Yeah,
heard.
yeah.
That prior to all the Latinos that
Really, really,
yeah,
yeah. And of course, everyone's complaining about gentrification and how the Latinos are being bought out. But
right.
you all forget that, yeah, they're selling their houses for $1 or $2 million, and they can move anywhere.
Well, the people that have homes, yes.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
unfortunately the people with apartments,
Well,
yeah.
excuse me. My mother bought maybe our second home for like ten thousand
Oh
dollars
my
in
God.
like the
That's so ridiculous.
late 40s, early 50s.
Yeah.
I bought a house in Angelino Heights in 1969 for $21,000. It's now worth $2 million.
Yeah.
Uh, so
Do you know how much the average home is right now in LA?
I it's over $1 million, I'm
Yeah,
sure.
it's about $1 million, but just in general, like LA County, the average is about you have to have $500,000, which is a lot of
It's a lot of
money.
money. Yeah. I have
And that's for like an average. That's not even a nice home.
friends that have sold their little house in Alhambra for maybe five or 900,000, and they've moved east to Colorado
Hmm.
or Ohio
Right,
because you can buy a mansion there for that kind of money.
right,
And it's kind of strange that the only place you can live is other places in the middle of the country that are relatively inexpensive compared to
right.
California,
Yeah.
which is very strange.
It's like California, and then it's LA, like central LA, that everyone wants to live. Um, so what schools did you go to
I
when you were growing up?
It's so funny because it influenced my life greatly. I started at the Euclid Avenue School, which was on Euclid and Whittier Boulevard.
Okay.
And of course, later on, I went to Stevenson Junior High and Roosevelt High.
Hmm.
And, everyone, that's the biography of anyone in this area. But I was given a little teeny scholarship to an art school, Otis Art Institute,
Hmm.
in 1950. I think first time graduating from junior high in
Hmm.
'56,
Oh wow.
and I was so enchanted with it that I told my high school teacher Roosevelt uh, about it, and he arranged to send me there again. So I went for 2 years, and I didn't want to go anywhere else, and I managed to pay for summer school and after school I'd go, and various art teachers there would arrange for you to hang out, and by the time I graduated from uh, high school, I really had art education from
Yeah.
Otis Art Institute.
Yeah.
So it's kind of amazing.
So you always knew you wanted to be an
I was
artist?
always an artist. You know, at 5 years old, I was drawing horses. Uh, I my daughter Sonia has the books I had as a child. It's called the Young People's Library,
Hmm.
and it's all these myths and legends about knights in armor and stuff like that. And there
Hmm.
were a lot of illustrations, and I remember uh, the knights on horseback, and I think there's a couple of drawings in one of those books that I did kind of like copying the horses.
Hmm.
And my father, many years later, says that Frankie loved to draw horses, and it's all because of those little books that
Yeah.
I was immersed in as a child.
Yeah. And then obviously your daughter like
And my
carried on.
daughter too. Well, she was just by the time she was born, that was like 10 years after Los Four.
Hmm.
So she grew up with all these art people around her, and
Right.
obviously,
She was
yeah,
influenced.
she was influenced. She actually went to the High School for the Arts, which is at Cal State LA,
Oh,
which is
wow.
which is where I went to school. Later, when I graduated from high school, I went to Cal State LA because it was the first university on the East Side.
Did you, oh, was it? I didn't know that. Did you finish college
Uh,
or you had just taken classes?
I took classes, and I was very fortunate that I got a part-time job among many, but I was a student professional in the field of art for the County of Los Angeles.
Oh, wow.
So I worked for all the various supervisors,
Hmm.
Kenny Hahn and uh, people like that, long, long time ago. But uh, and because of my professional black background as a graphic artist, eventually I got a job with Lou Danziger, who was this crazy designer. He would hire people and then fire them like 4 weeks later. But what he would do is send you to some friends of his in the art world and design world, and he sent me to Charles Eames,
Okay.
the furniture designer and filmmaker, uh, and exhibition designer. And I was very fortunate
Yeah.
because I spent maybe the '60s with the Charles Eames office, among other things.
Huh.
And eventually, all this time, I had already started school at Cal State LA,
Hmm.
and uh, I was sharing a studio and an apartment with Carlos Almaraz, who later became one of the members of Los Four. But
Hmm.
I remember living with him in New York and sharing a studio, and uh, and when I came back here, I mentioned that I ended up in Angelino Heights, which is people know it because what are those those films about high speed cars? What's the name of the
Fast and the Furious?
yeah, what is it?
Fast and the Furious.
Fast and Furious.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. So they're all filmed. Angelino Heights is famous
Yeah.
for it being a backdrop for all these films that are supposed to be on the East Coast because it looks like the East Coast. It's all Victorian homes. Uh, Oprah Winfrey has filmed, I think, one or two movies in my house.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Uh,
That's crazy.
Lady Sings the Blues was filmed two houses over. Uh, and all that kind of stuff. It's just a backdrop for many, many Hollywood films. And it's interesting because if you live there, the state of California has a program where any money you make from renting the films
Hmm.
uh, is tax free.
Oh,
So you
nice.
don't have to pay state tax.
That's pretty cool.
So yeah, 30,000 a year.
Yeah, it's nothing.
Nothing.
Okay, so let's talk about Los Four.
So
How did that get started? What
yeah,
it explain what it is.
Los Four is basically an art collective of Chicano artists,
Hmm.
and it began simply when Carlos and I were sharing space in New York, and I ended up marrying his best friend, which was the first wife. It's hard to go back that far
Right.
because this is our 50th anniversary of Los Four next year.
Oh wow. Are you guys gonna do anything?
We've so far planned a show at Eastern Projects,
Okay.
um, which is a gallery in Chinatown,
Hmm.
downtown Los Angeles.
Okay.
And anyway, of course, it's funny. I got married and came out back to the West Coast and found this house, wonderful 4-bedroom Victorian house for $21,000. And so Carlos followed me out like maybe 6 months later. He came out and shared a room downstairs because I had so many rooms.
Hmm.
And I think that was in the early 70s. And everyone was talking about the walkouts at Garfield High
Right,
and
right,
stuff like that, which we didn't know anything about it because we were living in New York.
right.
And all of that notwithstanding, we met, Carlos brought someone he met, looking around and trying to find out about that. And he met Gilbert Lujan, and he started talking about being Chicano. We didn't know what that meant.
Hmm.
We were Mexican American or Spanish American
Right.
in those days.
Yeah,
That's
yeah, yeah.
what we were called. But and it turned out there were other collectives organizing. There was one in Mexicano,
Hmm.
and there was one uh, Goes Galleries, which is it turned out to be my friend Ignacio Gomez was one of the principals of that group,
Right.
and we were kind of behind because we weren't a collective and we didn't want to be with any of them. So in a sense, Gilbert Lujan was curating a show at UC Irvine,
Uh-huh.
and so he said, "Why don't we do a for Chicano artists?" And nobody liked that name, so I came up with the name Los Four,
Yeah.
which was
It's a cool
bicultural,
name.
bilingual,
Yeah.
and it's the way it happened. And it turned out Ernie Debs was getting a lot of flack from people in his district, the third district
Uh-huh.
of the county of LA, and he directed somebody at LACMA,
Right.
uh, and it that was delegated to a young curator named Jane Livingston, who everyone knows her name because she later on, many years later, curated the Maplethorpe exhibition.
Hmm.
But in those days, she was looking for a Chicano show and heard about the one that uh, Gilbert, Carlos, and I, and eventually Beto de la Rocha were doing at UC Irvine, and it was picked up and for the LA Los Angeles County Museum of Art,
Yeah.
and and we had that show. My mother catered it. It was very local.
Nice.
We had a line around the block on opening night. It was amazing.
Yeah. You guys were the first
We were the first Chicanos
Chicanos
to have a show in a major art museum
in LACMA.
at
Yeah.
LACMA, and not only that, but we broke attendance records at
Yeah.
LACMA.
So, and why do you think that's important, like to have that representation?
Well, it's a funny. It was just an acknowledgement of
Right.
up to that point, really, art in the United States was, sort of a white man's event. It was, the feminist movement was just starting,
Right.
and all of that. It was just a different world there. You had to be a white artist to make it, and it took us, even after LACMA,
Yeah.
uh, took us another 10 years before we started to become established and make money.
Right.
Carlos was the first, and he was accused of everyone in the community of being a vendido, or selling out, because he had a gallery on the west side.
Oh, so he's a sellout.
Yeah, a sellout. Yeah, exactly. But it was envy and all of that,
Right.
and we continued.
Did anybody ever call you that?
I wasn't. It's so funny because I was the one that took care of, things, finances and all that, and a
Mm.
place to live. We were still in the house on Angelino Heights, but it was, even though when Stark Carlos was making money, I was still lending him money. So I don't quite know, because I had a regular job.
Yeah, what were you doing?
Well, I was a student professional in the field of art, or working for
Yeah, yeah.
Charles Eames, or
Okay.
doing photography and art and
So that's
stuff
how
like
you were
that.
you were using that money to
Yeah,
get by and
to get
everything.
by, yeah. And um, in fact, like, I remember when we heard about the show at LACMA,
Hmm.
I was in the Eames office. I was talking to Ray Eames, his wife, and I said, I was on the phone, and I was told I'm going to have a show at LACMA. And I told Ray Eames I'm going to be famous. It took us another 10 years, but we did.
Yeah,
We made it.
here you are, famous.
Okay. After the exhibition at Los Four, we were interviewed for an article at Time magazine, and we were all excited because that would have made our careers at that moment in 1974. And yet, by the time Time magazine heard about us and did the interview,
Yeah.
the exhibition was closing,
Oh,
and so they dropped the article. And so,
that's yeah,
even though
bad timing.
we were nationally known at that point, it took another 10 years for us to become established.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons we did that, I mean, is that after that, we had many Los Four shows all over the state of California, but not anywhere else. We had one in Long Beach. We had an incredible exhibition at uh, uh, Oakland,
Hmm.
at the brand new museum there. And it was just built, and we were given the whole downstairs uh, area, which was an incredible, like maybe 5 or 10,000 square feet.
Wow.
And we had a show at Sacramento, and I think various shows all over the state of California.
Hmm.
But we never, it took us another 10 years to become known nationally.
Right.
And a lot of that was based on work that Carlos did. Carlos Almaraz finally had a show at the Arcos Center for Visual Arts, which was much more important than even having a show at LACMA, because Arco established your career as a relevant artist in California.
Uh-huh.
And I believe his was in the early 80s. And then the Olympics rolled around, and I was chosen to do a mural on the freeway, which
Right.
was 22 feet high and 103 feet wide. And that painting, that mural, established my career.
Right.
And so Arco invited me to have a show at their facility, which was at the Bank of America Twin Towers in downtown Los Angeles.
Hmm.
It was the Arco Center. And both Carlos and my shows, I believe, were completely sold out.
Nice.
So we did very well.
Yeah.
And it always comes back to Gilbert Lujan, who believed that art should be free to the people and never established himself as an artist who sold his work.
Right.
And he was loved by many, many people, but he never did establish a career with a museum or a gallery.
Right.
And the same for Beto de la Rocha, which was the other member. He kind of kept giving up art. He felt it wasn't relevant, or that he kind of has a Jewish background,
Mm-hmm.
and he felt that it was sacrilegious to paint. He considered them graven images, painted images. So he would every 5 or 10 years he would give up painting altogether. And I think like he's still around, and he's kind of talking about maybe doing art again.
Okay.
But he's given it up for the last 10 years.
Have you at any point ever given up art?
No, I've done too well. And yes,
Did you ever doubt yourself when you were starting out?
no, I've always been an arrogant bastard. I admit it.
So you've never doubted yourself. That's amazing.
And I was lucky enough to have places I could work, like the 4-bedroom house, which in those days didn't have a garage.
Mm-hmm.
I had to build it, and yes, I married into a family that had established the Craft and Folk Art Museum,
Mm-hmm.
and they helped with financing, my building of a studio, which they lent me the money. I didn't even have to go to a bank, and I paid them off at $125 a month, something like that. But it created a studio, and later on, I actually did a fundraiser for one of Sister Karen's partners at Self-Help Graphics.
Oh, really?
And I just had his name now I've forgotten. Carlos Bueno.
Uh-huh.
And he wanted to visit he was a Mexican. He wanted to visit his mother in Mazatlan.
Mm-hmm.
And so we did a little fundraiser to raise money for him to go to Mazatlan.
Ah.
And I was so impressed with that I said, we should do one for us.
Mm-hmm.
And that ended up being the Christmas show that I've done for the last, it's been 50 years.
Yeah.
And now, because, I've become very much involved with Plaza de la Raza in Lincoln Heights.
Lincoln Heights.
And, like I believe Margot Alberts, who established Plaza de la Raza,
Mm-hmm.
Invited Carlos to teach the very first class before they even had buildings up.
Mm-hmm.
And we did, and both Carlos and I were sharing a studio. The house we shared for
Mm-hmm.
many years. And we taught the first class on a park bench at Plaza de la Raza.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I used to go there when I was little to learn how to paint.
Yeah, so that was...
And I went to self-help graphics too.
Uh-huh. Exactly, and it was just been part of everyone's background in
Mm-hmm.
those days. And I finally got involved very much because of my early history. Maybe 10 or 20 years later, I ended up on the Plaza board.
Yeah.
So I've been a board member, and people are supposed to stay on boards for 5 years and go on for other things.
Yeah.
I've been on the board for 30 years, and they don't want to I think I had a huge fight one time and quit, and they won't let me quit.
Is Maria still like the
Maria is the present director,
yeah.
and I've gone through Rose Cano. There was an early director that I don't even remember, and then I suggested that her assistant Rose Cano take over, and she was there for many, many years.
Mm-hmm.
And then when Rose left, it was Maria, and who was Rose's assistant.
Right.
So we've had pretty good uh, leadership
Right.
at Plaza, and like Maria is taking on all these extra duties because of federal funding
Right.
sort of going away.
Budget cuts and
Yeah,
stuff.
we lost all of that money, so we have to raise a lot of money, and we do it by doing renting the place out, because Plaza is a beautiful
Yeah, a
location,
venue. Yeah.
the venue, and we do quinceañeras and weddings and all kinds of things, and we rent out space,
Yeah.
and it really augments our income at Plaza.
Yeah.
And we've managed to survive all the federal cuts and all of that stuff for all these years.
Yeah. It's such a beautiful place
Yeah,
for the
and
community.
and for all of that, I love it. And I mentioned earlier the Christmas show that I started way back, almost 50 years ago, and
Mm-hmm.
I think for the last maybe 10 years, I transferred it over to Plaza
Mm-hmm.
as a fundraiser for Plaza. And the reason we did the Christmas show first place is because artists needed a venue so they could sell their art. Many artists, especially Chicanos, find it, like we did,
Right.
very hard to sell their art.
Yeah.
And so I started the Christmas show so many years ago, and it's now a fundraiser and a showcase for Latino artists in East LA.
Yeah.
And it's an incredible event. This is post COVID, and all of that, and we just had a beautiful, beautiful event. And I got to say, Margaret Garcia, uh, my ex-wife Nancy, and my daughter Sonia ended up with COVID.
Oh no.
So we're talking about this post-COVID period, but everyone, it's still around.
Yeah. Did you
And
ever get COVID?
I was lucky enough not to get
Oh my God.
it. But it's a strange world.
Yeah. But yeah, that's actually really cool that you never got it. Almost everybody has had COVID.
Yeah, so
But going back a little, you mentioned your mural for the Olympics, right?
yeah, 84. So it was done in 83. And I mentioned because of that, I was offered the show at Arco.
Right.
And
So what's your inspiration behind like all the cars and like
yeah, well, I mentioned that I've always lived in LA,
hmm
and even even in the 40s, like my father, that we'd go for Sunday drives, and I grew up in a car culture,
right.
and I
Like
think that
cruising.
yeah, the Pasadena Freeway was
hmm
just opened, and all of that, and I watched all the freeways, you know, come. They even the 60 cut through East LA and destroyed, the Latino community, cut it in half,
Right.
all of that stuff. But to me, to most people, a car symbolizes freedom and access to the rest of the world. You could just go there in your car,
hmm
uh, and so and when I met Gilbert. Um, he was very much into cars like I was as a teenager,
hmm
and we started talking about cars, and it all came out of that. Even Carlos Almaraz had a different take on it, and he started doing car crashes.
Okay.
And he's very famous for the car crashes. And the
Mm-hmm.
truth is, we were talking about car culture, and he said, "I think I'm going to do car crashes," because he figured he could make money off of the car crash. So it's just been part of my life, and
Yeah.
I have to admit, even my brothers who were non-artists, one of them worked for the city of LA and as a draftsman,
Mm-hmm.
and did uh, freeways, drawings for for all the freeways going in
Mm-hmm.
for the city of LA. And my other brother was a, a road attendant, and that traveled the freeways in one of those little green trucks.
Uh-huh.
To if you had any problems, he would come and help you.
Yeah.
So all my family has sort of been involved in various aspects of traveling in
Yeah.
Los Angeles. So it's very natural that I started painting
Cars.
cars.
All types of cars too. Do you have like a big car collection at all?
uh, it's so funny because I could never afford a vintage car.
Uh-huh.
Uh, and my father had the most beautiful 1930s Studebaker you ever saw, with two spare tires on the fenders and all that stuff. And because in those days we didn't even have a garage, so he kept moving it around the street, and of course the city of LA eventually picked it up and towed it away.
Ah.
So and I miss that car, and even some of the cars that we had in the as family. He had a '51 Chevrolet Turtleback, which I did in one of my very first giant murals.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, the closing of Whittier Boulevard,
Mm-hmm.
and and yes, I had a Packard straight eight um, for many years, but I couldn't afford to maintain it, and
Ah.
eventually got rid of it.
Yeah.
So nowadays I do little cars because
So you could
I can
afford them.
I can afford to deal with those.
Did you ever like cruising culture? Like were you ever a part of that?
Uh, yes and no, because we always heard about it. Gilbert talked about it, and at one point later on in life, I think I was in my late 30s, early 40s.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, my then wife Nancy and I interviewed the Duke's Car Club in South Central LA,
Mm-hmm.
and they all collect 38, 39 Chevys,
Oh wow.
which are like the classic
Yeah.
lowrider
Yeah.
car. And that was fascinating to me, and it's again one of the influences because I've painted that car ever since.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a cool car. What are some other than your cars, what are like some themes you like to explore in your art?
Well, I again when I was in high school, my art teacher was from the Art Institute of Chicago,
Okay.
and he always talked about French Impressionism. And
Mm-hmm.
of course, Carlos and I, we were all influenced by European art, especially Picasso and people like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always wanted to go to Europe, and
You have a house in Europe, don't you?
uh, I ended up
In France?
my present wife. When we were married, we decided we should go to Paris and stay there for an entire year, and we did,
Yeah.
and it was exciting. And now I met. It's so funny, another Hispano family uh, uh, um, in a little teeny village called Mermont, which is like 100 houses,
Mm-hmm.
and we just fell in love with the village and bought a house there,
Yeah.
and it was incredible. And we still have that house. In fact, we just bought the house next door as a guest house and studio,
Oh, nice.
and we lived half the year in France.
Yeah, that's a good lifestyle.
It's interesting, half the year in California and half the year in.
Do you favor which home do you prefer?
Well, that's an interesting thing because going back and forth, we ended up because it was, the house in Vermont is in the south of France,
Hmm.
and so we ended up buying a small apartment in Paris just to stay overnight.
Yeah.
And we just are selling that and buying a larger apartment in Paris because life in Paris is wonderful.
Yeah.
And going back and forth from the south to Paris, you always need a place to stay, and that's just our lifestyle.
Yeah. Have you heard of the outbreak of the bed bugs in Paris?
I did, and of course that's in hotels.
Yeah, right?
It's not in private homes.
Okay.
But I did, yeah, and I guess now there's always some crisis,
I know.
I mean, uh, you get used to the fact that everyone's always on strike for more wages of some sort or another,
Right.
and that's just part of life in Paris.
I wanted to discuss your friend Oscar Castillo because
Yes,
we had lunch with him a couple years back.
yeah, and because Oscar is very well known for his photography
Hmm.
of all things Chicano, and he's had a major exhibition at the Smithsonian,
Right.
uh, along with me and others.
Of course, you're there too.
But uh, because he's always around, and there's a very well-known photograph of the Los Four group all raising their hands
Yeah.
in solidarity, and uh, the original photograph was done at UC Irvine in '73, and I believe I lent that negative to LACMA, and of course they never returned it. And I've asked various people that work there what happened to the photograph, and he says, well, they moved it to a storage facility in South Central LA,
Hmm.
and I'll never see it again.
Mm.
And so the photograph everyone sees of Los Four is a version that we were all four of us were together almost for the very last time, uh, because both Gilbert and Carlos have since died,
Mm.
uh, and that Oscar took, and so that's become the famous painting of Los Four.
Right.
So it's kind of interesting, but he's been around for all those years.
Right. And I believe he mentioned that he was taking photographs of like a lot of the same like activism and
Yeah,
pol
exactly. He was there even for the Chicano moratorium, which it's a funny. Carlos and I were sharing the house in Angelino Heights, and
Mhm.
he went, and I couldn't go because I had a 3-year-old daughter,
Right.
and I said, there's going to be trouble there, and I can't go with a little girl,
Right.
and I did not go.
Yeah.
But
Good decision though.
yeah, but because of that, another friend of mine had written an article about Carlos and myself being, traditional artists that were interested in, painting beautiful things,
Hmm.
but not political things. And,
Right.
it so incensed me that I started doing political art. And of course, uh, the very first one, or very second painting I did, was the death of Ruben Salazar.
That's perfect. I was just gonna bring
Yeah,
that up.
yeah.
Okay, so
So
go into that.
that that brought all that, and Carlos got very much interested in working for Cesar Chavez,
Hmm.
and he worked on the the new union newspaper El Malcriado,
Mm-hmm.
and he used to fly up to Delano, go drive up to Delano once a month
Mm-hmm.
to work on the paper. So he was always involved in that. So politics and art were kind of intertwined in all our lives.
Yeah.
I After the closing of Whittier Boulevard, which was the sheriff's closing Whittier Boulevard to cruising
Right. Right.
in the late 60s, and then the death of Ruben Salazar maybe 10 years later, and then the last one was the well-known paintings was the arrest of the paleteros,
Mm-hmm.
the ice cream vendors,
Yeah.
which is it's still a problem in Los Angeles,
Yeah.
getting a permit.
Can you explain a little more what the death of Ruben Salazar is?
Ruben Salazar was an LA Times reporter that was at the Chicano moratorium, I believe 70, 71.
Mm-hmm.
And he was after work because it was kind of a violent event in that the sheriff's department undisciplined, and they started beating people, and nobody had any weapons or anything, and they were beating men, women, and children
Yeah.
all over. And Ruben Salazar was one of the reporters for the LA Times that was at that event, and afterwards they stopped for a beer at one of the local bars,
Right.
which it's been so many years I've forgotten. But for some reason, the sheriffs, again, undisciplined, without any warning, shot a tear gas canister into the bar through the front door, and it hit Ruben Salazar in the head and killed him.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was like the first, in a sense, Chicano martyr to the cause. And
Right.
and it was just an accidental killing. And I don't know. I know there have been hearings, and I don't know the history, but I don't know if anyone was ever charged with the killing of Ruben Salazar.
Right. Similar to George Floyd.
Yeah, exactly.
In Black Lives Matter movement. It's just like police brutality.
And the reason I do all the police brutality paintings, that I've done many over the years,
Right.
is because that's one of the things you learn growing up in Boyle Heights, East LA, is that you really have to respect, or in a sense, just stay away from any police factions.
That's
And
true.
and it's covered my work.
Yeah.
Much of my work is about police brutality.
Right.
I mentioned that when I was up for a jury trial about someone beating up some guy in the back of a bar, and the judge asked me, "Well, what do you do for a living?" I said, "Well, I'm an artist, and I'm famous for my paintings of police brutality." And of course, the prosecutor threw me off the jury. So it's a good way to avoid jury duty. Also,
I've tried to do that, but they still want me.
You just say, "You know me."
Okay, next time. I'm friends with Frank. Do you have a favorite piece of your artwork at all, like that you can think of? I know you have so much here, but
I do have so much now. And, like right now, because I have this new woodworker working for me.
Yeah. What's his name?
Daniel. He's my daughter's partner,
Mm-hmm.
father of two of my grandchildren.
Okay.
And it's so funny because he's been with me, what, 3 months or 4 months
Mm-hmm.
now, and and I haven't had a carpenter for a year, and a lot of stuff I do is wood sculpture, or painted wood sculpture,
Right.
and so he's really relevant to what I'm doing right now.
Mm.
I don't know. I think you walked around and can photograph
Yeah.
some of the stuff lying around, but it's very exciting. So that's what I'm into right now is painted wood sculpture.
Yeah. Okay. So these are, you favor those right now.
Yeah, I do. Early on, even during the Los Four exhibition, uh, uh, Carlos Gilbert and I decided to do a graffiti mural with spray cans,
Hmm.
just to relate to the Chicano culture
Right.
and the young people. And ever since then, I've been doing paintings of broken hearts. One of them from the Los Four show in '74, and I'm still doing hearts of various kinds. I'm known for my heart paintings, and now and again they're backlit uh, or surrounded by neon lights.
Yeah. I like the neon lights.
Yeah,
It's really cool.
and but it's funny they go back to '74.
Nice. And how do you decide how do you title your paintings or your artwork?
My title are kind of narrative. I try to tell you what I'm doing. Like I have two. I forget what that that flower from Hawaii is called. What is it? Anthurium. Thank you. But to me, it looks like a butt and a huge penis. So I'm always doing paintings.
So you're fascinated with that?
Fascinated with all of that. So and the butt kind of looks like a heart anyway. So,
Yeah, I thought it was a heart.
but it's actually the leaf.
You're tricking people.
But anyway, I paint anything and everything. You know, and yeah, even nowadays you don't go around with a drawing book because cameras have been so pervasive in our society,
Right.
and I was an early photographer. I started in the '60s with the County of Los Angeles. We had a photography unit, and I started taking pictures and making prints. And I still carry nowadays. I carry a camera in my back pocket, and everywhere I go, rather than doing a drawing, I may do one every now and then, but I take pictures,
Yeah,
and
that's cool.
I work from pictures,
Yeah,
photographs,
nice.
and I enjoy it. And it's really been part of my background.
I saw an interview, I think it was for the Smithsonian, and you said that you can do a painting or a piece of art in like 30, 40 minutes. Is that true?
I do many paintings, small ones,
Yeah.
uh, in about 30 minutes.
And you're selling them for like thousands of dollars sometimes.
Oh, it's like it's basically 4,000 a linear foot. When I do a mural, like I have a 5 feet mural, so 5 times 4 is 40,000. So yeah, I'm doing okay financially.
Yeah, good for you, Frank.
I know I'm insulting both Beto and Gilbert by saying that, but
Yeah, but you made it, so um I was going to say that with your political artwork, a lot of, I mean, everything you paint appears to be very like bright and colorful. And do you realize that it kind of like contradicts sometimes like the police brutality that you're painting?
it's interesting.
Did you do that intentionally?
It is intentional, and
Okay.
it in a sense is celebrating Mexican or Latino culture. And when we were growing up, Carlos and I are we're the same age.
Mm.
Uh, we were influenced by people like Rico Lebrun and Picasso and Los Tres Grandes, the Mexican muralists. But part of Mexican culture is the bright, brilliant colors.
Right.
And, even when I'm doing a somber painting of murder, there's a lot of red blood.
It's bright.
So it's just part of the work.
Yeah. And how do you feel about your daughter following in your footsteps?
Well, she's now she's a rival.
What's your daughter's name?
Sonia
Sonia.
Amalia Romero.
So she's your
Very,
competition now.
very, yeah. She's a competition, and she's the one doing murals these days.
Yeah.
I just finished a major project on the west side, and I won't mention where it is because every time somebody hears about a mural that Frank Romero does, they go and graffiti it,
Oh,
including the Olympic mural.
I know.
But I just did finish 6 murals in a major venue on the west side.
Hmm. Do you ever collaborate with your daughter?
Uh, I'll mention because we're both kind of in love with. She went to Rhode Island School of Design and she wanted to major in painting, and it was full, so she majored in printmaking and has become a very good printmaker.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the pieces we collaborated on recently was a heart motif, where she painted the background and I painted the broken heart in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a collaborative piece that Sonia and I did together.
Nice. You must be so proud of her.
Yeah.
Well, we're pretty much at the hour. Do you have any events or projects that you're currently working on in 2024?
Well, the major project is going to be the Los Four exhibition of hopefully Roberto de la Rocha, who is threatening to be painting again.
Uh-huh.
But Gilbert and Carlos are both dead, so we're going to find examples of their work
Right.
from various private collections, and hopefully my work and Beto's work as the 2 living members of Los Four.
Mm-hmm.
And so that'll be in the middle of next year, 2024, at Eastern Projects Gallery in Chinatown.
Okay. And then where can some people find some of your artwork at? Which museums?
Well, I'm very fortunate in that.
Or which part of LA?
Yeah, I'm very fortunate in that the Smithsonian owns a number of major works, including a major mural. I believe they own The Death of Ruben Salazar.
They do.
And of course, I'm a major patron of the arts, and who I've known for many years now is Chich Marin. So we have to mention the new Chich Marin Museum in
Riverside.
Riverside?
Yeah.
I have no idea where it is.
It's in Riverside. It's called the Cheech.
Okay,
Yeah.
Is it? Thank
Yeah.
you, thank you so much.
Yeah, okay, so your paintings are there. Does he
Yes.
have a couple?
And because I told Cheech when he first announced that he was transferring his private collection to Riverside. I said I'll never go. I don't even know where it is. And it is a great distance from downtown LA.
Yeah, it is.
And yes, I live in Beverly Hills and I have a studio in Boyle Heights. But I haven't been to the Cheech yet, and last week they finally came to me and interviewed me for one of their projects, and hopefully uh, uh, some friends of mine are threatening to drive me because it's too far for me to go alone.
Yeah, definitely. I can drive you because I want to go too.
Okay, then come with us.
All right. All right. Well, thank you for doing this, Frank. It means so much to me.
Well, thank you.
All right, and we'll close out here.